Sometimes in media, I've seen a type of joke. It almost feels like a trope, but basically, you got one character who's not really popular in a group, suggests a course of action. Everyone overwhelmingly rejects it. But then when someone who's a lot more popular suggests the exact same course of action, then everyone immediately is on board with it. Because I'm starting to get that feeling right now when it comes to this statement Jenna Ortega made concerning gender swapping roles so they can have more female characters, because many people, including myself, have basically said that it kind of feels almost patronizing and that they shouldn't be doing something like that if they actually want to have more women roles and create original roles for women. Don't just gender swap them. And normally when it's a guy like me suggesting such a thing, I'm getting called racist, sexist, and all that other stuff. But when Jenna Ortega says the exact same thing, now suddenly you get people going like, well, yeah, maybe she's onto something there. She kind of has a point. This article from the Hollywood Reporter is talking about an interview that she did recently to kind of promote the upcoming movie Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. And this is what it has to say about it. The headline, Jenna Ortega says women should have their own franchises. I don't want James Bond. The Beetlejuice star reacts to the trends of reimagining iconic male roles. Jenna Ortega weighed in on the trend of remaking iconic films with female leads. The Wednesday Star was doing an interview with MTV along with her Beetlejuice co-star Catherine O'Hara. Host Josh Horowitz asked Ortega's thoughts on the potential sequel, like would she be interested in starring in a sequel to another one of director Tim Burton's classics, Edward Scissorhands, which could hypothetically be called Edith Scissorhands with Ortega in the Johnny Depp role. See, that is just a stupid idea. If I saw that being promoted, I'd be like, okay, this is going to be a failure. I mean, it's not just because the original one is kind of a timeless classic, but just because it would be very obvious what they're doing if they were trying to make such a movie. It's not because they want to actually have a different perspective on the character. They literally would just be doing that in order to just say like, oh, now we have a gender swapped Edward Scissorhands. Plus, I mean, if you're just given the original story, I don't see how it would actually work with the female lead, but that's a whole other issue. Let's continue on with this. While Ortega and O'Hara initially found the idea funny, yeah, if someone asked me that, I'd probably laugh it off too. Just like, okay, what you just said was a stupid question, so I'm just going to laugh and act like you were just joking the whole time to save you kind of the embarrassment. Ortega quickly added, I love that there's a lot more female leads nowadays. I think that's so special, but we should have our own, she said. I don't like it when it's like a spinoff. I don't want to see like Jimmy Bond, you know? And the reason she brought up James Bond specifically when that wasn't asked during the interview is because this is something that's been kind of thrown around in Hollywood for quite some time now. Take a look at this article from The Wrap dated February 2018, where Rachel Weisz was asked about having a female James Bond, and she rejected that outright, pretty much saying what Jenna Ortega is saying now, and that the character should be a man. And if you actually want to have a good female character, then it should be an original female character instead of just doing a gender swap. However, there are some actresses that it points out right here that said that they would be open or they have expressed interest in playing what they say right here, Jane Bond, which to me, this seems very patronizing because it's almost to suggest to women that there can't be any good women characters created. They have to be basically a gender swap because it's to imply if you create a female character, then no one will like it. So you have to hijack something with a built-in fan base in order to hope to actually get some audience, which that's actually a pretty sad way of looking at things. And that's frankly what some of these actresses or a lot of other even people within the industry kind of believe, where women are just inferior to men and that you have to take their roles in order for them to actually make them something that people would be willing to see. And we've seen time and time again that's not necessarily true, but still there are some people who believe that and some people pushing that. Fortunately, there are actors like Rachel Weisz and Jenna Ortega who are calling that out, but it looks like when it comes to James Bond, that's probably not going to be the case. Scrolling further down in this article from the Hollywood Reporter, the idea of shaking up not just stirring the straight white and often chauvinistic James Bond has been the topic of debate for years. The franchise's longtime producer, Barbara Broccoli, previously expressed the view that echoes Ortega's take, telling the Hollywood Reporter in 2021, I think the next James Bond will be a man because I don't think a woman should play James Bond, she said. I believe in making characters for women and not just having women play men's roles. I don't think there are enough great roles for women, and it's very important to me that we make movies for women about women. he should be British, so British can be any ethnicity or race. I think it's kind of curious that she turns a blind eye when it comes to ethnicity and race, but understands that you can't just swap out a male character with a female character and expect it to be no different, because I've been told that there's a different experience growing up as a non-white person versus as a white person. So you can't just swap them out and it'd make no difference in that. And I maintain that I believe it's also patronizing to imply that the only way you can actually have a good role for a non-white person is to just basically do a race swap of a role that was created for a white person. And that I think there should be more original characters. And this is pretty much what I maintain about a lot of this stuff. And I think I agree with Jenna Ortega on this, and that there should just be more original characters and less just trying to change things around. And I believe that would also imply to just stop doing remakes, reimaginings, reboots, sequels, and other things like that. Create more original stories. And if you're creating original stories that involve female characters, fine. If it involves non-white characters, fine. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I just want to have good stories. And generally, when studios are going to be doing like these race swaps and gender swaps and other stunts like that, it's usually done with the intent of just trying to, I would say, conceal shoddy writing. And what I mean by that is a lot of people understand that movies are unoriginal with constant remakes and other things like that. I just went over it. But when they want to avoid any criticism, because usually if they're just going to remake a movie, then it'll be criticized as being a soulless cash grab. But if you race swap a role or gender swap a role, well, then suddenly you kind of have a built-in excuse. And then you got some people out there who will fight tooth and nail to defend it just because it represents whatever group that they want it to represent. And I think studios have kind of picked up on that in recent years. So they've started doing that a lot more. But they've also learned that it's not ultimately profitable for them. They're losing out on the box office. And we've seen that time and time again, that every time they do that, it seems to fail. So I think they're starting to understand, like, okay, we can't get away with that anymore. So I think if they're at least smart, they're going to try to shy away from that and just try to go with more original characters and more original stories. There have certainly been popular films that have offered a female James Bond-like character, such as 2017's well-regarded action film Atomic Blonde starring Charlize Theron, 2010's Salt starring Angelina Jolie, and 2021's Marvel hit Black Widow starring Scarlett Johansson. Also, while not a film's main character, Rebecca Ferguson was widely considered outstanding in her fan-favorite role as ex-MI6 intelligence agent Ilsa Faust in Mission Impossible Rogue Nations and its several sequels. Yeah, I actually really liked her character in the Mission Impossible movies. It was a shame what happened to her in the last one, but still, I think she did a real good job in those roles. And I would like to see more like that. But if you're just going to, like, let's say in several years, reboot Mission Impossible and just have a female Edith Hunt or whatever they're going to do, I don't think it'll be as well received. And I probably won't be much interested in watching a movie like that, because it just seems like the studio, if they were to produce something like that, would have no idea what they're doing. So they're just trying to bank off of something that they think has name recognition behind it. But I do like to see people like Jenna Ortega, a lot of young actresses, a lot more people kind of standing up to this sort of thing, because it is a little bit ridiculous how some people act like you have to basically just be hijacking something else that was created for another type of person in order to hopefully get an audience. And that's not going to be the case. Yes, you do have a lot of work ahead of you if you're going to start from new, but I think it's better to create something original as opposed to just trying to make a subpar version of something that someone else created. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Do you agree that there shouldn't be any gender and race swaps in movies, or do you think that's actually better for the industry to just keep on remaking and rebooting stuff and just changing up those aspects just to try to keep it fresh? Comment below, and if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share the video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.